Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, home to one of North America's most violent mafia families.
If he didn't like somebody, there was no nonsense. Dead.
During the 1980s and 90s, a vicious mob war spills onto the city streets, and a new generation of mobsters shoots their way straight into the limelight.
They were media darlings. They liked the attention. What's the point of being a gangster if nobody knows who you are?
Philadelphia watches the bloody spectacle played nightly on TV.
Police are calling it a mob assassination.
Behind the gunfire, a bitter contest between greed and tradition that tears the Philadelphia underworld apart. Angelo Bruno, godfather of the Philadelphia Mafia for 21 years, is one of North America's most powerful organized crime bosses. To the authorities, he portrays himself as a quiet tobacco salesman. But in reality, he makes millions from illicit gambling rackets, collecting illegal taxes from local businesses and loan sharking. Former Philadelphia mobster Nick the Crow Caramandi killed for the Philly mob and grew up in the city under Bruno's rule.
He became the boss in 1959, and he ruled it with an iron hand. He kept it pretty quiet, and not too many murders. A murder occasionally, here and there.
Bruno's lawyer and friend, Nick Nastasi, remembers Angelo's quiet authority.
I once walked with him in his neighborhood, and there wasn't this ostentatious show of, I'm a tough guy, I'm a wise guy. It just wasn't a part of his character.
March 21st, 1980, a stormy evening in South Philadelphia. Angelo Bruno pulls up outside his house. At the wheel is his trusted driver, John Stanfa, a Sicilian-born mafia associate. Bruno lives in the heart of the city's Italian-American community. Here he feels safe. As a mafia don, he rules these streets, but not for long.
The shooting was gangland style. Angelo Bruno was shot in the back of the head at point-blank range.
FBI agent Jim Marr is called in to investigate the crime scene.
Bruno was still seated in the passenger side of the car, his mouth open, his head back. From looking at the body, first it appeared as though he'd been shot behind the right ear.
Bruno's death sent shockwaves through Philadelphia's close-knit Italian community. Many in South Philly respected him. They called him the Gentle Don because of his preference for conciliation over violence.
Perfect gentleman, perfect neighbor, always had a hello, always spoke kind. He was such a well-liked man that didn't realize that something like this could happen.
Bruno's murder causes panic inside the closed world of the Philadelphia Mafia.
Angelo gets killed, and everybody's running in different directions, trying to figure out who did it. Everybody was scared to death.
Bruno grew up here, in the Italian market district, and people looked up to him. He'd come a long way, from the son of a grocer to a millionaire. His parents were Sicilians, part of a wave of immigration during the 1900s. Many made their home in South Philadelphia, just a mile from Independence Hall, the birthplace of the U.S. Constitution. But the early Italian immigrants soon encountered barriers of wealth and class that excluded them from the elitist social circles of Philadelphia. So they closed ranks and built their own fortunes. At the heart of it all, the Italian market that still operates today. It was here that the early Italian gangs began to operate in the fragile immigrant community. They made good money running protection rackets from other rival gangs. The Sicilians emerged as the most powerful. The Philadelphia Mafia was born. Journalist and Philly mob expert George Anastasia, descended from Sicilian immigrants himself, grew up in South Philadelphia.
They come to this country as immigrants, they're Italians. At that point, a lot of doors are closed. They make the choice to become gangsters. It's the wrong choice, but they make that choice, and they rise to the top of their field.
It was in this world that Angelo Bruno operated, and soon he proved he had the ability to rise to the top.
I've since represented hundreds and hundreds of people in leadership positions, and I will tell you that Angelo Bruno was as bright and inquisitive a mind as the most inquisitive minds that I've represented.
Bruno, seen here in this FBI surveillance film, ran his organization the Sicilian way. Honor, loyalty, and obedience were the pillars on which the Philly mob stood. Its members bound by sacred oaths and secret rituals. Chief among them, Omerta, the vow of silence. Induction into the family was reserved for those who killed for the organization and was marked by solemn ritual. The hand is cut and religious symbols are burned to signify the sacred blood ties of the Mafia and its members. For Philadelphia mobster Nick Caramandi, it was a major honor.
It's like you died and went to heaven. I mean, you're somebody now, you know. It's not something that you could join. You have to be chosen. If I betray any of these people here, I should die like the saints in hell.
True to Mafia traditions, Angelo Bruno's crew lived and died by this strict code of silence. You didn't rat on your brothers, and you didn't brag about what you were doing.
Angelo Bruno was very much an old world kind of Mafia boss, maybe the last one in Philadelphia. And the idea was you make money, you don't make headlines. You don't call attention to yourself.
Bruno had strong ties with New York boss of bosses Carlo Gambino. Together they sat on the commission, a board of the most powerful mob bosses in the U.S. Bruno allows the Gambinos to operate drug deals on his territory for a percentage of the profits. But he banned his own Philadelphia crew from participating in the lucrative narcotics trade. This riles many of Bruno's underlings. Frustrated, they start to resent his financial success. Bruno miscalculates the rising levels of discontent.
It led to Angelo Bruno's downfall because some of his members felt he was grabbing all the money for himself, holding it, and they couldn't do anything.
Among the dissenting factions is Bruno's ambitious consigliere, or chief advisor, Tony Bananas Caponegro. Soon after Bruno's death, Caponegro is summoned to New York by the commission. Nick Caramandi speaks to him before he leaves Philadelphia.
I'm in this bar that I met Tony, and he says, I'm going to New York tomorrow, and everything will be okay. When I come back, everything is going to be different.
But Caponegro doesn't return. He disappears. A month later, the Bronx, New York, 100 miles north of Philadelphia, the police investigate an abandoned car. A grisly trail of dollar bills leads to the trunk. Inside is a battered body. The dollar bills indicate the victim's transgression. Greed. It's Caponegro.
He was so badly beaten and unrecognizable that it took a month for the New York Police Department to identify the body.
Rumors spread. They revealed that Caponegro murdered Angelo Bruno so he could take the position of Philadelphia Godfather. The commission, infuriated that Caponegro killed Bruno without the consent, sentenced the consigliere to death for committing the ultimate violation against a Mafia family. An unsanctioned hit.
It was economics. Bruno's killed, Caponegro's killed, and the Philadelphia family is kind of turned into a chaotic condition from which it never really recovered. It just was careening out of control ever since then.
With Angelo Bruno and Anthony Caponegro dead, The Philadelphia Mafia needs a new Don. Phil Testa, Sicilian-born mafiosi, was Angelo Bruno's underboss, which makes him the natural choice for successor. With the approval of the New York crime families, Testa steps into Angelo Bruno's shoes, but they prove impossible to fill.
What he did was try to keep the Bruno reign and that style going, but he was unable to do that because there was too much at stake. Violence had been let loose, and people realized that they could advance by murder.
March 15, 1981. Almost a year to the day since the murder of Angelo Bruno. Mob boss Phil Testa returns to his home in South Philadelphia.
Police are calling it a mob assassination.
Testa is fatally wounded by a remote-controlled nail bomb placed under the front stoop.
How loud was the explosion?
Loud enough to blow me right out of my bed. I says, it must be a bomb or something, you know, the way it went off.
It was very powerful. It was the contents of 13 sticks of dynamite in a box with finishing nails. It was designed to act like a claymore mine and scatter all the shrapnel. It blew most of the wall out into the street in front of the house, with some of the debris hitting his car, which was double parked.
The perpetrators of the bombing are never brought to justice, although many believe the incident was ordered by Testa's ambitious underboss, Peter Casella. Philadelphia has lost two godfathers in less than a year. It's unprecedented. Once again, the New York crime families must decide who will become Philadelphia's next Don. It's a decision that started the bloodiest chapter in Philadelphia's violent mob history. 1981. The Philadelphia Mafia is in turmoil after the murder of two mob bosses, Angelo Bruno and Phil Testa, in less than a year. The door is wide open for a new godfather, and the man to step through it is little Nikki Scarfo, Testa's consigliere.
One little thing, I mean, Scarfo could turn on you in a minute. I mean, we all were afraid, you know, we followed the rules. As long as you followed the rules, you were okay. But if he didn't like somebody, that was it. There was no nonsense. Dead.
What Scarfo lacks in height, he makes up for in violence. Within the first year of his reign, 9 people are murdered. 2 in retaliation for Phil Testa's death.
The Scarfo murder was a calling card. If you annoyed him, aggravated him, you're likely to get popped. And that destabilized the whole organization.
There was no regard to honor except for his. Everything centered around him. He was a totally self-centered, egotistical maniac.
Salvi Testa is the late Phil Testa's son and one of Scarfo's captains. Fellow mobsters see him as a future high flyer. Salvi has killed over 10 men for Scarfo, and the mob boss holds him in high esteem. Salvi plans to marry the daughter of Scarfo's underboss. The new Don gives the couple his blessing and plans an extravagant wedding.
The wedding was already set up. They were going to have Michael Jackson come and sing at this hotel, 700 guests.
But Salvi gets cold feet and calls the wedding off. Nikki Scarfo is furious.
Salvi Testa had embarrassed my underboss. He embarrassed me. You can't have that. What kind of respect is that? But the real reason was that Scarfo was worried that Salvi Testa was gaining too much of a following within the organization, very charismatic, a young kid, and he was worried about him as a rival.
Scarfo wants Salvi dead. He orders Nick the Crow Caramandi to make the hit.
I got nightmares over him because he was a true mafioso. I mean, they didn't come any better than him. And I really didn't want to see him go, but, you know, that's the way it was.
Out of loyalty to his blood oath, Caramandi follows orders. But Salvi Testa is no easy target. He's understandably nervous.
When he used to come around, he used to shake my hand and like sort of feel me down to see if I had a piece. He'd hug me and then with his hand feel me right down to the waist.
After months of waiting for a good place and time, Caramondi and his triggerman seized the opportunity in the back room of a candy store on the Italian market.
As soon as he turns his back, he gets up and shoots him back of the head. Then when he goes down, he gave him another one. Bang, bang.
2 bullets to the back of the head, and Salvi Testa is dead. His body is dumped by the side of a country road in New Jersey. A growing media frenzy catapults the citizens of Philadelphia into the violent world of the once low-lying Mafia. This is real-life drama, and the set is right on the public's doorstep.
It is very much a soap opera in Philadelphia. It always has been. And if they weren't shooting each other, it would almost be a black comedy. But these guys all got guns and they're all knocking each other off.
By the 1980s, FBI surveillance technology has become far more sophisticated, allowing them to watch the Mafia's every move. 1986, the Delaware River that borders Philadelphia. A development company, Rouse, plans to build a multi-million-dollar housing scheme on the waterfront. It's the backbone of an extensive urban redevelopment project to help bring Philadelphia out of the economic doldrums. High unemployment has left many downtown areas crime-ridden. Philadelphia wants to attract new investments, but this redevelopment attracts attention of a far more troubling kind: Mafia. Nikki Scarfo decides he can make millions of dollars in a vast extortion scam from the Rouse development project. He sends Caramondi to shake down the owner, William Rouse. If the development company cooperates, the mob will leave them alone.
I met with the guy, and I said, look, it's this, 1 million, and you could have whatever you want. You could have the whole waterfront. Then you won't have any trouble with unions. We'll get you the contractors. You won't have no labor problems. This is what you're getting for $1 million.
But William Rouse is outraged. He refuses to be intimidated. Instead, he seeks help from the Mafia's biggest enemy.
It was such a bold and blatant shakedown that it drove Rouse right to the FBI.
It's the break the FBI has been waiting for. When Caramondi returns with his crew for an answer, he doesn't realize that one of the developers is a wired undercover FBI agent recording his every word.
All right, now, let them show you and tell them.
We were able to introduce an undercover FBI agent as the Rouse executive, and they went forward and tried to shake him down, the FBI agent, for the $1 million.
It's all over for Caramondi. He's sent to jail to await trial. But Don is infuriated. Caramondi's capture would implicate Scarfo directly in the crime, and the penalties will be heavy.
I was sick, laying in my cell. What am I going to do? I'm in trouble. I'm in serious trouble.
Caramondi translated trouble to death, that he was to be the scapegoat, that in the Rouse extortion, removing him, taking him out, maybe lessens the problem.
Faced with prison time or death at the hand of Scarfo, Caramondi is forced to make the toughest decision of his life.
It took me 2 days, and I finally called the FBI, and I only wanted to talk about certain things. I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to talk about my own self. I didn't want to involve other people.
When he received the idea that he was going to be the sacrificial lamb, he decided that his future lay with the federal government rather than with the mob.
It's a turning point for the Philly mob. Nikki the Crow Caramondi sings. He becomes a key witness and betrays the Mafia's oath of omerta.
His deal was that he would plead guilty to the extortion and take whatever sentence the judge gave him, and that we would make no recommendation as to sentence, but would tell the judge about the value and extent of his cooperation. But if the judge gave him 20 years, it was 20 years.
The star witness ready to testify. The FBI arrests Scarfo. In court, Caramondi testifies against his former boss.
He was 10 feet away from me, looked me straight in the eyes, I looked him straight in the eyes.
For the next 8 weeks, it's a war of nerves as Caramondi's colleagues make their bitter feelings known.
To be 19, 20 lined at the table looking at me, you know. People in the audience making faces, you know, like this, this. They used to go like this. So it was pretty scary.
On November 19th, 1988, Scarfo is finally found guilty, along with 16 others, on multiple charges, including murder, extortion, and drug dealing. It's all over for the Philly mob boss. He's sentenced to life in prison, scheduled for release in 2033, at the age of 104. Scarfo in jail creates a dangerous power vacuum in the Philadelphia mob. But waiting in the wings is a young wise guy with big aspirations. If little Nikki Scarfo was an unstable Don, then Joey Merlino's love for the media spotlight will bring down the heat in a different way. By the late 1980s, South Philadelphia is in the grip of a brutal mafia war.
Well, I'm concerned about the community and the neighborhood in South Philadelphia. We have to do something to not permit this type of lawlessness.
In the chaos following the jailing of Godfather Nikki Scarfo, a fresh group of wise guys take center stage. This rare footage reveals the new big hitters of the Philly mob. At their head is a young hotshot with big ambitions, 35-year-old skinny Joey Merlino. He captains a softball team supported by a local South Philly restaurant. Mobsters at play, something that neither the FBI nor Philadelphia has seen before. And Skinny Joey loves every minute of the attention.
We were looking at a change in the membership of La Cosa Nostra, a younger person, less dedicated to the mores of the mob, the legend of the mob, the discipline of the mob. The newer generation was not satisfied with the old ways of holding power quietly and just being. They wanted to be recognized.
With Scarfo in jail, Merolino wants to take the top spot for himself. But there's only one way to get it. He moves in on Scarfo's old territory, South Philly. Bookmakers, drug dealers, loan sharks, and even shopkeepers pay Merolino protection money or risk intimidation and violence. The cash goes tax-free straight into his pocket. But when Skinny Joey runs into Scarfo's son, Nikki Jr., also collecting street tax, there's trouble in store. Merolino becomes defiant. October 31st, 1989, Halloween night. Dante and Luigi's restaurant, a traditional haunt for generations of Italian Americans in South Philadelphia. Nikki Scarfo Jr., the imprisoned Don's son, dives into his favorite meal of clams and spaghetti. He never sees the masked man walking through the restaurant towards him.
It was clear that the attackers meant to kill the young man.
Even though Nikki Scarfo Jr. is hit 8 times at close range, the bullets miss vital organs, and miraculously, he survives. The mob hit in the middle of a public restaurant shocks the city. Merlino's street crews are getting out of hand. The Philly Mafia needs a new Don to stop the public violence, and fast. Once more, the New York crime families must approve a new godfather for the Philadelphia mob. This time, they play it safe. They bring in John Stanfa, a Sicilian steeped in the old ways of the Mafia. Stanfa was the personal driver for the gentle Don, Angelo Bruno, and is trusted by the New York Commission.
The New York families go to Stanford and say, Stanford, go back to Philadelphia, put that family back together.
But Stanford immediately locks horns with the ambitious Merlino crew.
Right away, he's in conflict with the younger guys, and they're saying, who's this interloper, who's the Siggy? He calls them the little Americans, they call him the greaser. It's a generational thing, it's an ethnic thing, and this tension develops.
The once protective bubble of the Philadelphia mob has burst. This new generation of mobsters doesn't feel connected to the secretive world of the Sicilian Mafia and believes John Stanford has no right to run an American Mafia family.
You have changes taking place then in American society where subsequent generations are totally assimilated. They are no longer bilingual. They no longer have the older European set of values and cultural influences. They're just totally American.
In 1990, Joey Merlino's criminal career is interrupted. He's sent to jail for 4 years on charges of armed robbery. Inside, Merlino's dislike for John Stanford plays right into the hands of Ralph Natali, a Mafia old-timer imprisoned on narcotics charges. Natali encourages the ambitious Merlino to wrestle control of the Philly mob from John Stanford and take it for the both of them.
Joey's talking about John Stanford and the turmoil in Philadelphia, and Ralph, considering himself an old head, starts to advise Joey, telling him what to do, how to act, that kind of stuff.
With Merlino in prison, it's time for Stanford to bolster his own crew. His attention turns to Big Ron Previty, a former Philadelphia cop gone bad. Previty is an established thief. He made his name in the underworld, fleecing the casinos in Atlantic City. The mob allowed him to operate as long as he paid them a street tax.
There was 100 different ways to steal from the casino. You steal from the casino, you steal from patrons, you steal from rooms, you steal everything. And the amount of money I made was astronomical.
Previty has the know-how to earn good money, and Stanford wants a piece of the action. He recruits Previty as a bodyguard and allows Big Ron to operate his criminal activities in Philadelphia. In return, Previty pays Stanford a cut of his proceeds.
I was useful to the Philadelphia Mafia because I brought in scads of money. A lot of money through my bookmaking, through my extortions. I was constantly bringing Stanford money, constantly.
Previty is a practiced extortionist. His disturbing methods revealed why Stanford values him.
You don't want to kill people for money when they owe you money, because if they're dead, they can't pay you. So you beat them up, you threaten them. You'd hit him with a baseball bat. I had a guy one time, I took him to a car, opened the hood, and put his head next to the fan belt and closed the hood on his head. And, you know, every time the fan went around, it would hit his cheek. You don't have to do it often, because when Joe Blow tells Bob Blow that you stabbed him with a screwdriver and shows him, you know, they pay you.
But secretly, Previty is worried. Skinny Joey is on early release from prison, and the Merlino-Stanford power struggle is spiraling out of control. The violent nature of the rival factions could mean trouble for Previty.
The generations have totally changed that, you know? It's a whole different thing nowadays. They're more like street corner thugs than a organized crime unit.
With Previty in the middle of this turmoil, the FBI spots an opportunity. They know he's in a vulnerable position, and they want to exploit it. The FBI makes him an offer too good to refuse. A weekly payment in return for mob information.
Working for the FBI at the time, working for Stanford at the time, working for myself at the time. I mean, bullets were flying, people were getting shot. I got Stanford screaming and hollering he wants money. I got the FBI wanting information. It's a tightrope. It's a real tightrope. But, hey, I walked it.
With Stanford oblivious to an informer in his midst, he makes a calculated move that surprises many. He tries to bridge the generation gap between him and the rival Merlino factions and bring stability to the Philadelphia streets. Stanfa makes Joey Chang Ciancaglini his underboss. Joey's brother Michael is a member of the rival Merlino gang. Merlino soon responds to the conciliatory overture. March 2nd, 1993. The Warfield Cafe just off Schuylkill Expressway in South Philadelphia. Before dawn, it's a desolate spot. The cafe is a Mafia front. The owner is Joey Chang Ciancaglini, Stanfa's newly appointed underboss. The FBI constantly monitors the restaurant with surveillance cameras pointed at the front door. 5:54 a.m. Joey Chang and a waitress arrive for work. Less than 4 minutes later, a station wagon with Mafia rival Joey Merlino and his crew drive past the restaurant.
You can see the car go by the first time, then you can see the car go by and pull in. You see the three figures come out of the car and go into the luncheonette. Inside,
FBI wiretaps pick up the next 5 seconds of audio as gunfire rings out.
You hear the gunfire from the microphone inside, you hear the waitress scream, and you see them leave.
It's the only recorded mob hit in history. Joey Chang takes 5 bullets, but somehow survives. Among the assassins, Joey Chang's brother and Merolino crew member Michael Ciancaglini. Stanfa takes the news seriously. This time, he decides on a violent solution and orders a revengeful hit on Merlino and Ciancaglini.
The FBI pandered to my weakness, which was money. And they threw a lot of money at me. And I took it. I was making, $9,000 a month plus expenses.
Although Previty cuts one of the best financial deals in the history of the FBI, he places himself in a very dangerous position.
If they discover the wire, what do you do then? I mean, the only thing you can do is kill the guy.
Oftentimes he was in places where we couldn't see him. He was in a building, we didn't know where he was in the building. If they decided to kill him, we would just know who had killed him if we got the tape back.
Previty risks discovery on a daily basis.
I was in a room one time recording some people, and I put my leg up on the table, and the on-off button was hanging out under the pant leg, right? I'm looking around, I said, oh, and these dopes didn't even see it, so I just put my leg down. I said, I gotta go, guys, and I left.
Finally, Previty records a series of incriminating conversations for the FBI. The evidence is so powerful, it could be the final blow to the Philadelphia mob. Philadelphia, 1999. Ralph Natalia spent 5 years at the helm of the Philly mob. After 2 decades of bitter rivalry, he's struggling to keep the trigger-happy factions under control. Natalia's underboss, skinny Joey Merlino, appears to be the one in charge.
The relationship was that Ralph was going to be the boss and Joey the underboss. But in reality, it never was. Joey was always the boss.
To make matters worse, the FBI surveillance teams follow Natalia and Merlino's every move, building a case against them. This is the Fed's most effective surveillance tool. Mafia turncoat Big Ron Previty wears a wire for almost 3 years, recording the activities of the Philadelphia mob.
Ron Previty brought evidence in against 3 separate Cosa Nostra family bosses. John Stanfa, who he was able to get close with, Ralph Natali, who he got very close with, and Joe Merlino.
Previty is the key to bringing Natali and Merlino to justice. He records 400 hours of conversations for the FBI, and many place Natali at the heart of a narcotics ring through Philadelphia and New Jersey. The evidence is overwhelming. The FBI finally makes its move against the beleaguered boss. In 2000, Natali pleads guilty to 8 murders, several attempted murders, extortion, illegal gambling, loan sharking, and drug distribution. In a bid to save his own skin, Natali makes an extraordinary decision: to cooperate with the feds. He is the first sitting boss in American Mafia history to squeal on his mob associates.
Natali realizes he's a 2-time convicted drug dealer. This is life if it gets convicted. And Natali decides, that's it. Previty's got me nailed already. I'm going to cooperate.
Natali is living proof that the old Mafia code of silence and respect is dead. His testimony finally nails Joey Merlino. In December 2001, Merlino was sentenced to 14 years in prison on charges of racketeering. Between Previty and Natali, their evidence helps convict over 20 ranking members of the Philadelphia Mafia and decimates their organization. On January 21st, 2005, at the age of 69, Natali is finally sentenced to 13 years in prison. After he's released, he'll spend the rest of his life in witness protection. The 2 men who helped the FBI bring down the Philly mob have broken the most sacred and time-honored codes of the Mafia. Such transgression brings with it the risk of imminent death, but so far, they're alive. Nick the Crow Caramandi was one of the first to sing. He now lives in an undisclosed location under an assumed name in the witness protection program.
You know, I'm lucky that I'm still here, let's put it that way. You gotta be safe, safety, that's the word. I'm always looking over my shoulder to watch who I see, you know, try to stay low-key.
Big Ron Previty remains in the Atlantic City area, refusing any protection from the federal government.
I have to be careful. A lot of people don't like me, but then again, I don't like them either. So, que sera, sera, whatever will be, you know? When you're born, there's a date you're gonna die. And I lived a good life. I really did.
What happened to the mob in Philadelphia can be seen happening all over North America.
If there ever was a code of silence, and if there ever was this idea of honor and loyalty that disappeared a generation or 2 ago, it was a phenomenon, the Italian-American gangster experience, but I think it's pretty much played itself out.
The mob no longer has the powerful support network of community, language, and culture that Angelo Bruno relied on. Traditions that once formed a protective cocoon around the Mafia are now gone. Unable to withstand outside pressure from law enforcement and social change, the once powerful Philadelphia Mafia family collapsed, never to recover.